Good evening, good evening, good evening. Thank you for tuning in this beautiful Sunday evening. It is currently 10:17 p.m. And of course, today's date is the 12th of July 2026. God bless you, God bless your family, God bless these United States. I just got to be here to say, man, to tragedy to lose Senator Lindsey Graham. He passed away, 71 years old. Here are some supercut from his top contemporary Senate moment. This dated from December 10, 2024 up until 2026. He definitely had a back and forth with some, I would say, Make America Great Again fan, like diehard fans. But he stood his ground and he definitely just said the things that he believed. Everybody has a right to say what they want in a country like the United States, free speech. But he passed away at 71 years old. A lot of, theories have been popping up. A lot of theories have been popping up saying this, saying that, but these are just theories, okay? And let the Spirit of God just embrace his soul and take him where he belongs. All right. With that being said, let's go straight to the point. Here we go. Senator Lindsey Graham, RIP.
Does anybody disagree with the following statement? America has a right to limit how many people can come into our country.
No.
Nobody disagrees with that. Good. Mr. Toure, very successful life. You have much to be proud of. During the 4 years of the Trump administration, were you ever, anybody suggest you should be deported?
Thank you, Senator, for the question. No.
Okay. Do you support deporting the 1.2 million people who have been through the system, have a final order of removal? Do you support them leaving?
Senator, I'm a prosecutor. I
didn't ask you if you're a prosecutor. Do you support them leaving?
I support people that have committed serious crimes.
Do you support the people who have gone through the system, been denied, had their day in court, final order removal? Do you support them leaving?
If you have
as a prosecutor, as a rule of law person.
If you have committed a serious crime in this country,
that's not the question. So is it your belief that every non-criminal in the world can come to America?
No.
How many people want to come to America that are non-criminals? Probably hundreds of millions. And I understand why. It's a great country. So my point is, if you're not willing to say that we're going to deport you after you've had your full day in court, you're facing a final order of deportation, we're going to incentivize people to come forever. Mr. Melnick, is that right? How many people did Ronald Reagan provide amnesty to?
Estimates are roughly 2.7 to 3 million.
How many illegal immigrants are in the country today?
I said roughly 13 million, although we don't know the exact
I would say
estimates.
that the last thing we want to do is give amnesty to people here now because we'll be overrun. Mr. Arthur, would you describe the last 4 years as mass illegal immigration coming to our borders?
I believe that that's fair characterization, Senator.
Does anybody disagree that the last 4 years has resulted in mass illegal immigration directed toward America? Because if this is not mass, what the hell would be? Now, how do you answer mass illegal immigration? You start enforcing the laws, Ms. Moran said, and you start sending people back who've had their day in court. You can't answer the question, and I respect you. You've been able to take the opportunity to make something of yourself, but we're passing on just constant disorder. If you can't say you should be deported after you've had a full hearing, everything been available to, and you lose, and it's hard to say you need to go, we don't have an immigration system. General, how many people have been deployed to the border by governors to assist and border security from the National Guard?
Sir, I don't have that information.
Okay, it's thousands. Is that illegal use of the National Guard?
It is not the illegal use of the National Guard.
It's legal, right?
That is correct.
Yeah, I agree with you there. What's the largest cause of death in America for young people? Does anybody know? Mr. Arthur.
Drug poisoning overdose deaths.
Coming from a drug called fentanyl?
That is correct,
Mainly.
sir.
Okay, where does that drug come from?
That drug, reports indicate that it's made from precursors that come from the People's Republic of China, assembled in Mexico, and largely smuggled into the United States over the Southwest.
General Manner, do you consider illegal immigration a national security problem?
I believe that it is something that ICE and CBT needs to address.
No, I ask you, is it a national security problem?
I think it's a concern, yes.
Okay, I do too. And they're the highest number of people on the terrorist watch list in our country today. At the end of the day, the number of people being killed in America by drug poisoning is coming from labs and cartels in Mexico. General Manner, does the president have the authority to attack a drug lab in Mexico that's making fentanyl to kill American citizens?
I am not a legal expert, Senator, and I do not know.
So here's what I would say. I think we need to be tough, compassionate, but end this crap. If you're trying to poison America, you're a drug cartel, your days are numbered. We're coming after you, hopefully working with Mexico. If you've had your full day in court and you lost, it's time for you to go and try to do it right. We have to break this endless cycle of having policies that entice people to come to our country illegally, because that is the lack, we're losing sovereignty and losing control of our nation. There are too many people being hurt from this out of control system. So how do you deal with mass illegal immigration? You start with mass deportation of people who shouldn't be here. Mr. Toure, I think President Trump was pretty clear about DACA. But what do we tell the kids who've been brought here in the last year who are 7 years old? Do you ever break this chain? So I'm hoping, Mr. Chairman, that once we regain control of our border and try to shut down the poisoning of America, we can have a logical, rational discussion about dreamers and others. But until we control that border, until we get control over the crime coming into this country, into the poisoning of America, that discussion cannot happen. I've worked with you and others for really decades to fix a broken immigration system. The way the Biden administration's handled this border problem has created a nightmare for our country. And there's a reason 70% of the people want deportations. It's not because they're mean. They want to bring order to chaos. Thank you.
Senator Klobuchar.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for having this hearing. And I know that you've worked with Senator Graham in the past on the Dreamers issue, and I hope that work continues. And I would start with what you said, Mr. Arthur, just about how we don't know yet how this is.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Republicans will answer the call. All of us, every one of us, is ready to work with you and our Democratic colleagues on this committee to prove to the American people, while Washington is certainly broken, there's a ray of hope, and it is here. It lies with your children. After years of working on this issue with you and others, I've come to conclude the following. Social media companies, as they are currently designed and operate, are dangerous products. They're destroying lives, threatening democracy itself. These companies must be reined in, or the worst is yet to come. Gavin Guffey is a representative, Republican representative from South Carolina in the Rock Hill area. To all the victims who came and showed us photos of your loved ones, don't quit. It's working. You're making a difference. Through you, we'll get to where we need to go so other people won't have to show a photo of their family. The damage to your family has been done. Hopefully we can take your pain and turn it into something positive so nobody else has to hold up a sign. Gavin's son got online with Instagram and was tricked by a group in Nigeria that put up a young lady posing to be his girlfriend. And as things go at that stage in life, he gave her some photos, compromising sexual photos, and it turned out that she was part of a extortion group in Nigeria. They threatened the young man that if you don't give us money, we're going to expose these photos. He gave them money, but it wasn't enough. They kept threatening, and he killed himself. They threatened Mr. Guffey and a son. These are bastards by any known definition. Mr. Zuckerberg, you and the companies before us, I know you don't mean it to be so, but you have blood on your hands. You have a product. You have a product that's killing people. When we had cigarettes killing people, we did some about it, maybe not enough. You're going to talk about guns, we have the ATF. Nothing here. There's not a damn thing anybody can do about it. You can't be sued. Now, Senator Blumenthal and Blackburn, who've been like the dynamic duo here, have found emails from your company where they warned you about this stuff, and you decided not to hire 45 people that could do a better job of policing this. So the bottom line is you can't be sued. You should be. And these emails would be great for punitive damages. But the courtroom's closed to every American abused by all the companies in front of me. Of all the people in America we could give blanket liability protection to, this would be the last group I would pick. It is now time to repeal Section 230. This committee is made up of ideologically most different people you could find. We've come together through your leadership, Mr. Chairman, to pass 5 bills to deal with the problem of exploitation of children. I'll talk about them in depth in a little bit. The bottom line is all these bills have met the same fate. They go nowhere. They leave the committee and they die. Now, there's another approach. What do you do with dangerous products? You either allow lawsuits, you have statutory protections to protect consumers, or you have a commission of sorts to regulate the industry in question, to take your license away if you have a license, to fine you. None of that exists here. We live in America in 2024 where there is no regulatory body dealing with the most profitable, biggest companies in the history of the world. They can't be sued, and there's not one law on the book that's meaningful protecting the American consumer. Other than that, we're in a good spot. So here's what I think is going to happen. I think after this hearing today, we're going to put a lot of pressure on our colleagues, leadership of the Republican Democratic Senate, to let these bills get to the floor and vote. And I'm going to go down, starting in a couple of weeks, make unanimous consent request to do CSAM, do the Earn It Act, do your bill, do all the bills, and you can be famous, come and object. I'm going to give you a chance to be famous. Now, Elizabeth Warren and Lindsey Graham have almost nothing in common. I promised her I would say that publicly. The only thing worse than me doing a bill with Elizabeth Warren is her doing a bill with me. We have sort of parked that because Elizabeth and I see an abuse here that needs to be dealt with. Senator Durbin and I have different political philosophies, but I appreciate what you've done on this committee. You've been a great partner. To all of my Democratic colleagues, thank you very, very much. To my Republican colleagues, thank you all very, very much. Save the applause for when we get a result. It's all talk right now. But there'll come a day, if we keep pressing, to get the right answer for the American people. What is that answer? Accountability. Now, these products have an upside. You've enriched our lives in many ways. Mr. Zuckerberg, you created a product I use. The idea, I think, when you first came up with this, be able to talk to your friends and your family and pass on your life, to be able to have a place where you could talk to your friends and family about good things going on in life. And I use it. We all use it. There's an upside to everything here, but the dark side hasn't been dealt with. It's now time to deal with the dark side because people have taken your idea and they have turned it into a nightmare for the American people. They've turned it into a nightmare for the world at large. TikTok. We had a great discussion about how maybe Larry Ellison through Oracle can protect American data from Chinese communist influence. But TikTok, your representative in Israel quit the company because TikTok is being used in a way to basically destroy the Jewish state. This is not just about individuals. I worry that in 2024, our democracy will be attacked again through these platforms by foreign actors. We're exposed, and AI is just starting. So to my colleagues, we're here for a reason. This committee has a history of being tough, but also doing things that need to be done. This committee has risen to the occasion. There's more that we can do, but to the members of this committee, let's insist that our colleagues rise to the occasion also. Let's make sure that in the 118th Congress, we have votes that would fix this problem. All you can do is cast your vote at the end of the day, but you can urge the system to require others to cast their vote. Mr. Chairman, I will continue to work with you and everybody on this committee to have a day of reckoning on the floor of the United States Senate. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Graham. Today we welcome 5 witnesses whom I'll introduce.
Each witness, start with you, Ms. Berry. Do you believe it's very difficult now for Jewish students to attend colleges in America?
I think it can be for individual Jewish
No,
students.
I said, is it?
It can't. It depends on the individual students and what they're
okay.
encountering. Yes.
Rabbi, do you think it is?
Yes, almost impossible.
Ms. Stern?
Senator, it depends on the campus. For many, absolutely so. But I would also add one other thing, that if there are some Jewish students who are anti-Zionists, whose Judaism leads them to that position, and they are also getting
Ms. Stern,
spat on.
I'm trying to establish a baseline. The reason we wrote the letter is because we see playing out before our eyes just an assault on Jewish students in colleges. I'm looking at systems here. Does anybody, let me ask you, the DNI said Iran, we have observed actors tied to Iran's government posing as activists online, seeking to encourage protest and even providing financial support to protesters. Does anybody doubt that? Okay. Mr. Stern, is it Hamas's goal to destroy the Jewish state?
Absolutely. Hamas
Is it Hezbollah's goal to destroy the Jewish state?
Absolutely.
Is it Iran's goal to destroy the Jewish state?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Berry, do you agree with that?
I think these are complicated questions. I
No,
really
it's
don't
not.
want to talk
There's
about
nothing
foreign
complicated
policy.
about it. That's the most ridiculous
Senator,
testimony ever given in this committee.
Yeah. So
if you think it's
all of those-
complicated to figure out that Hamas, Hezbollah, and Iran wants to kill all the Jews,
Yeah.
I should not listen to anything else you got to say.
Okay. May I, Senator?
And I won't.
If I may,
Rabbi,
Senator?
Rabbi,
I think we started.
do
to
you
look-
believe that Hamas, Hezbollah, and Iran are out to kill all the Jews and destroy Israel?
I believe they're out to destroy the Jewish state and kill all the Jews. both.
Okay, so I do too. And I believe Iran's behind this. And what I would like this committee to do is deal with the systematic problems that exist regarding what's going on American colleges today. What's going on in colleges today, there's an organized effort to intimidate, harass, and physically assault Jewish students. What's going on today is an effort on multiple fronts to wipe Israel off the map. This is not an academic discussion. As to what should happen, Mr. Stern, if a student on a college campus uses the N-word against African American or students, should they be expelled?
I think if a student goes and harasses another student, says that to their face, that could be absolutely a matter for discipline. However, I think if they're just standing up there with a sign or saying, this is what I think, or a word I'm choosing, and not threatening somebody and not harassing, then that should be deplored, but it should not be the subject of discipline.
But do you agree with me if African American students are being called the N-word and harassed and belittled by other students, those students should pay a price for that?
I think if there's any type of harassment, doesn't matter the word.
Yeah.
But if the students are being
Well, the word
harassed,
does matter if you're African American.
well, what I'm saying is that no harassment should be
Well,
tolerated.
right,
that way.
there you go. That's good. So the idea that you could hold somebody accountable for using words makes sense to me, because free speech is a concept that we all hold near and dear, but words start wars. Words can incite violence. You can't yell fire in a theater. So what I would say that's going on here is that we have to deal with the problem at its roots, first identifying it. America has many problems. There are people hateful to each other. That's been with us since there's been a country. We live in a unique moment in America, I think. And I'm trying to get us to focus on that moment about not only a rise of anti-Semitism, but an effort by agents of Iran and other powers to divide us here at home. What's so sad is that October the 7th was designed to destroy the reconciliation between Saudi Arabia and Israel. All the intel shows us that Iran struck Israel in such a vicious way to stop the reconciliation between Saudi Arabia and Israel. I believe that with all my heart. I don't want them to win. I want to normalize between Saudi Arabia and Israel. I want a better life for the Palestinian community, and it can never happen without Hamas being destroyed and never coming back. It can never happen without Hezbollah and Iran being contained. It can never happen without security for the state of Israel. So what I would say, without any hesitation, that what's going on in America on our campuses is worthy of a discussion all of its own. We need to get to the bottom of it and start holding people accountable who run these schools. Thank you.
Senator Whitehouse.
Thanks very much, Chairman. Let me start by agreeing with.
At this point, I'm going to turn to my ranking member, Senator Graham.
Thank you, Mr. Citron. You said we need to start a discussion. Be honest with you, we've been having this discussion for a very long time. We need to get a result, not a discussion. Do you agree with that?
Ranking Member, I agree this is an issue that we've also been very focused on since we started our company in 2015, but this is the first time.
Are you familiar with the Earn It Act, authored by myself and Senator Blumenthal?
A little bit, yes.
Okay, or do you support that? Like yes or no?
We're not prepared to support it today, but we believe that
do you support the CSAM Act?
The Stop CSAM Act, we are not prepared to support today, but we
do you
think
support the SHIELD Act?
We believe that the cyber tip line.
Do you support it, yes or no?
We believe that the cyber tip line and NECMEC.
I'll take that to be no. The Project Safe Childhood Act, do you support it?
We believe that.
I'll take that to be no. The Report Act, do you support it?
Ranking Member Graham, we very much look forward to having conversations with you and your team.
Well, I look forward to passing a bill that will solve the problem. Do you support removing Section 230 liability protections for social media companies?
I believe that Section 230 needs to be updated. It's a very old law.
Do you support repealing it so people can sue if they believe they're harmed?
I think that Section 230, as written, while it has many downsides, has enabled innovation on the internet, which I think has largely been.
Thank you very much. So here you are. If you're waiting on these guys to solve the problem, we're going to die waiting. Mr. Zuckerberg, try to be respectful here. The representative from South Carolina, Mr. Guffey's son got caught up in a sex extortion ring in Nigeria using Instagram. He was shaken down, paid money. That wasn't enough, and he killed himself using Instagram. What would you like to say to him?
It's terrible. I mean, no one should have to go through something like that.
Do you think he should be allowed to sue you?
I think that they can sue us.
Well, I think he should, and he can't. So the bottom line here, folks, is that this committee is done with talking. We passed 5 bills unanimously that in their different ways. And look at who did this. Graham Blumenthal, Durbin Hawley, Klobuchar Cornyn, Cornyn Klobuchar, Blackburn and Ossoff. I mean, we've found common ground here that just is astonishing. And we've had hearing after hearing, Mr. Chairman, and the bottom line is I've come to conclude, gentlemen, that you're not going to support any of this. Linda, how you say your last name?
Yacarino.
Do you support the Earn It Act?
We strongly support the collaboration to raise industry practices to
Do you support the Earn
prevent
It Act?
CSAM.
Do you support the Earn It in English? Do you support the Earn It Act? Yes or no? We don't need double speak
We look
here.
forward to supporting and continue our conversations.
Okay, so I
as
think
you
that
can
is no.
see,
But you have taken, the reason the Earn It Act is important, you can actually lose your liability protections when children are exploited and you didn't use best business practices. See, the Earn It Act means you have to earn liability protection. You're given it no matter what you do. So to the members of this committee, it is now time to make sure that the people who are holding up the signs can sue on behalf of their loved ones. Nothing will change until the courtroom door is open to victims of social media. $2 billion, Mr. Chu. What percentage is that of what you made last year?
Senator, it's a significant and increasing investment. As a private company, we're not sharing our financials.
You pay taxes. I mean, 2% is what percent of your revenue?
Senator, we're not ready to share our financials in public.
Well, I just think $2 billion sounds a lot unless you make $100 billion. So the point is, you know, when you tell us you're going to spend $2 billion, great, but how much do you make? You know, it's all about eyeballs. Well, our goal is to get eyeballs on you. And it's just not about children. I mean, the damage being done. Do you realize, Mr. Chu, that your TikTok representative in Israel resigned yesterday?
Yes, I am aware.
Okay, and he said, I resigned from TikTok. We're living in a time in which our existence as Jews in Israel, and Israel is under attack and in danger. Multiple screenshots taken from TikTok's internal employee chat platform known as LARC show how TikTok's trust and safety officers celebrate the barbaric acts of Hamas and other Iranian-backed terror groups, including the Houthis in Yemen.
Senator, I need to make it very clear that pro-Hamas content and hate speech is not allowed on our platform or within our company.
Why did he resign? Why did he quit?
Senator, we also do not allow any hateful behavior at work.
Do you know why he quit?
We do not allow this. We will investigate such
My question is, he quit. I'm sure he had a good job. He gave up a good job because he thinks your platform is being used to help people who want to destroy the Jewish state. And I'm not saying you want that. Mr. Zuckerberg, I'm not saying you want, as an individual, any of the harms. I am saying that the products you have created with all the upside have a dark side. Mr. Citron, I am tired of talking. I'm tired of having discussions. We all know the answer here. And here's the ultimate answer. Stand behind your product. Go to the American courtroom and defend your practices. Open up the courthouse door. Until you do that, nothing will change. Until these people can be sued for the damage they're doing, it is all talk. I'm a Republican who believes in free enterprise, but I also believe that every American who's been wronged has to have somebody to go to complain. There's no commission to go to that can punish you. There's not one law in the book because you oppose everything we do, and you can't be sued. That has to stop, folks. How do you expect the people in the audience to believe that we're going to help their families if we don't have some system or a combination of systems to hold these people accountable? Because for all the upside, the dark side is too great to live with. We do not need to live this way as Americans.
Thank you, Senator Graham.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm glad to have you back. You look like you filled up well. So to the heartbreak in Tennessee, it's unimaginable from a parent's point of view, what's being experienced in Tennessee. There's so much heartbreak in this world. The heartbreak of fentanyl poisoning. You asked a rhetorical question, what are we going to do about the shootings in Tennessee? We passed some bipartisan proposals that hopefully will help down the road. Question back to you, what are we going to do about the poisoning of America? So here's what I would say. America's under attack. Our nation is being attacked by foreign powers called drug cartels in Mexico. When the Japanese attacked America in Pearl Harbor, they killed about 3,000 Americans. 9/11, when we were attacked, about 3,000. This is the largest attack on America's homeland by a foreign power in the history of the nation. 70,000 Americans were poisoned by fentanyl last year, more than car wrecks and gun violence combined, and it's getting worse. A couple of days ago, Senator Schumer had a news conference in New York talking about the danger of mixing fentanyl with a drug called xylazine. He called it skin-rotting zombie drug. He called for the DEA to send teams into New York to try to do something about it. He called for more education when it comes to people using drugs. I would support both of those, but what I'd like to do is go to the source of the problem. What would America do if a foreign power lobbed a rocket into, let's say, our friends in Arizona or Texas? We would strike back. We're doing virtually nothing when it comes to being under attack by drug cartels that's deterring the behavior. Ms. Kaiserling, who lost her children to fentanyl, said, "This is a war, act like it, do something." Our partner in Mexico basically is a complete denial. The president of Mexico denies there's safe havens for drug cartels where they run parts of Mexico. He says that's not true. He blames us for the fentanyl crisis. He denies the fact that fentanyl is produced in Mexico, sent to America to kill Americans. So we got a real problem, Mr. Chairman. And you asked, what can Congress do? We'll keep working together. I'd like to work with you. Maybe we can find a way to make some progress. But this idea that the executive branch is helpless without Congress is ridiculous. You want to fix this, Mr. Secretary? Go back to Trump policies. Just reimpose everything Donald Trump did to secure a border, and your problem will dramatically be improved. You're not helpless. You change policies in a bad way, and you're getting a bad result. We're under attack by drug cartels. We've lost operational control of the border. This secretary has said numerous times, we have control of the border. The head of the Border Patrol about a couple of weeks ago said we don't have operational control of the border. Well, anybody who believes that we're in control of the border is in denial. We've lost control of our border. The number of people coming across our border on the terrorist watch list is going up like a rocket. So what's my concern? General Corelli said, the head of CENTCOM, due to our withdrawal from Afghanistan, the likelihood of an attack coming against America from Afghanistan could mature within 6 months without warning. You have a completely broken border. You have terrorism on the rise. This is a lethal combination, but this is just not me saying things. We actually have some evidence to suggest that what I'm saying is factually true. In 2020, December, we had the lowest illegal crossings in the last 40 years because of Trump policies. Since those policies were changed, we've had 4.8 million illegal encounters on the southern border. FY21, 1.7 million. FY22, 2.4 million, setting a record. The first time in the history of the country, 2 million illegal encounters at our border. Since October of 2022, 385,000 gotaways. The lowest illegal crossings in the history of the country for the last 40 years. In December, since you and the Biden administration have been in charge, look what's happened. And you know how it happened? You took all the policies, Mr. Secretary, that are working, and you changed them, and it's blown up in our face. Now, fentanyl. Fentanyl is killing Americans at levels we've never seen. More people died last year from fentanyl poisoning in a single year than the entire Vietnam War that went on for over a decade. Fentanyl poisoning is the leading cause of death for 18 to 45-year-olds in the country. Look what's happened. In 2021, 71,238 deaths from fentanyl poisoning overdoses. In 2023, year to date, we seized 11,000 pounds of fentanyl at the border. The year before, 14,700. In 2014, none. In 2015, 70 pounds. 11,000 pounds of fentanyl is enough to kill 2.5 billion people. How is this happening? Where is it coming from? It's coming from Mexico and China. So when the Mexican president denies that drug cartels are not in charge of parts of Mexico, he's either lying or he has no idea what's going on in his own country. This is a State Department map. If you're looking to travel to Mexico, all these red zones do not travel. That's like going to Afghanistan or Syria. Who controls these red zones? Drug cartels that are making billions of dollars off bringing fentanyl into the country and human trafficking due to a broken immigration system. And quite frankly, we need to take the gloves off. They're at war with us. We need to be at war with them. Now, when it comes to terrorists, people apprehended on the terrorist watch list. 2021, it was 15. 2022, it's 98. To date, already 69. This is a lethal combination. People traveling to America on a terrorist watch list. The terrorists are getting stronger because of our withdrawal from Afghanistan, and they're coming here in larger numbers. If we do not change course, if we do not change where we're at, Americans are going to continue to die from drug cartel poisoning. The illegal immigration problem is exploding and the human misery around it with no end in sight. We went from the lowest illegal crossings in December 2020 to over 4.2 million on your watch. Bottom line, the Corelli statement, if we have it.
It's right there.
It is my commander's estimate that ISIS-K can do an external operation against the U.S. or Western interest abroad in under 6 months with little to no warning. You're on notice. You're on notice. You, your department, and the President of the United States is on notice. One of our field commanders in charge of the region right with terrorism is telling this nation in open sworn testimony that within 6 months, the enemy that's arising in Afghanistan has the ability to attack this country without warning. As he makes that statement, the lack of operational control of the border is a lethal combination for this country. So, Mr. Secretary, you have a hard job. I think things would change if they would listen to you more. The bottom line is we've created a nightmare for America, and that nightmare needs to end. Control our border. Go back to Trump policies, have the Congress work together to fix immigration in a more forward-looking fashion, regain control of the border, go after the cartels, tell the Mexican president, get with it, work with us, or we're going to have to do things differently. Secure the border now before we get attacked later. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Graham. Today we Graham.
Thank you. Ms. Swear, let's revisit, is it the Rahimi case? Is that the right name?
Yes, sir, I believe so.
Okay. Let's see what is the most compelling thing to learn from that case. How many times was this gentleman involved with shooting at people?
I'm not sure in total, but it seems like at least 6 or 7.
Okay, and he was released based on what charge? He was facing a charge and released?
The first time he was facing at least one felony domestic violence charge and two others. I'm not sure whether they were misdemeanors or felonies under Texas law.
Okay. Is it pretty fair to say that this guy should not have been out on the streets?
Absolutely not. He was very clearly a danger to both specific individuals and the public at large.
Mr. Manguel, is this a common problem where our criminal justice system has a revolving door when it comes to people who are exhibiting violent behavior?
It most certainly is a common problem, and one that is a long-standing problem as well. I mean, one of the statistics I didn't get a chance to get to was that between 1990 and 2002, the Bureau of Justice Statistics reported that over a third of individuals convicted of violent felonies were either out on probation, parole, or pretrial release at the time of those offenses. As our criminal justice system has gotten softer, that problem's only gotten bigger.
So when you look at what America is facing, would you agree with me the best thing we could do as a nation is to make sure that our parole laws and our attitude toward violent criminals is changed so that they are not out hurting people, they stay in jail?
I think that's exactly right. I mean, one of the biggest challenges that we currently face, as evidenced by the data on the role that repeat offenders play in serious gun violence, is that we are systematically failing to draw and enforce a line as to how much repeated criminal conduct we are willing to accept and tolerate.
Well, if your proposition is true, America would be responding in a certain way. Do you realize, Ms. Swear, that from 1991 to 2019, the number of guns in America number of weapons owned by Americans has doubled?
I am aware of that. Yes, Senator.
Do you are aware of the fact the number of concealed carry permits have increased by 7-fold?
I know it has increased exponentially. I will take you at your word that it's roughly 7-fold.
Are you aware that between 2019 and 2020, 58% increase in gun purchases by African Americans, 43% increase by Asians, 46% increase in purchases by Latino Americans, 40% of those purchases are made by first-time gun buyers? Are you aware that from 2005 to 2020, a 77% increase in gun ownership by women, and that from 2019 to 2020, a majority of people buying guns were women? Are you aware of all that?
Yes, Senator, I am.
Why do you think that's going on?
It's because there are a lot of Americans, specifically, as you mentioned, women and ethnic minorities, who, a lot of them for the first time in their lives, beginning in the last couple of years, looked around at the state of reality in this country with sort of widespread issues with policing, with...
Well, let's just stop there for a moment. Mr. Lindley, you've been a police officer. Thank you for your service. How's morale among police in America, generally speaking?
Thank you for the question, Senator. I think overall, morale is decreasing.
Yeah, and there are probably a lot of reasons for that, but it's harder to get people into law enforcement now, and I'd like to work with people to try to change that. Mr. Rubin, do you agree with the Heller decision that interpreted the Second Amendment to be an individual right? Was that a good legal decision?
Yes, sir.
You do?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Ms. Glenn, your experience was terrible. Your husband, former husband, had been charged with armed robbery. Had he been convicted of armed robbery, or I don't know, make sure I got
Yes, many years before the incident, yes.
Okay, and he had actually been charged with kidnapping you too
Yes.
before the shooting.
Months before the incident.
Yeah, so I guess here's my point. Senator Cornyn has shown the way to work on responsible gun ownership limitations. I don't think there's anything in this case that says common sense doesn't prevail. But this Bruin case and Heller case are important in my view. Mr. Chairman, it reinforced the idea that the Second Amendment is there for individuals and that individuals have a right to defend themselves in a responsible way, even outside their home. So what I would hope this committee could do is end, to the extent possible, the revolving door policies that allow people time and time again to come back out on the streets, hurt their fellow citizens. In this situation, I would just add in conclusion The reason so many people are buying guns is because they've lost faith in their government to protect them.
Why do you think that a special counsel is necessary now after the John Durham's already
So I supported a special counsel appointment when Attorney General Sessions recused himself. The accusations were serious, and the Mueller investigation turned out to be a sad chapter. But having said all that, the DNI is releasing documents that are unnerving, and they've sent it over to the Department of Justice. So let's use the process of getting it out of the politics of the moment. And if there's any there, have a special counsel look at it. I'm not going to make a judgment about who did what, but I think the country would be well served by a process that allows somebody outside of DOJ to look at it. That's what we did in the past. As to the Epstein files, release as much as you can, protect victims, but get it all out there and let people make their own decisions. As to any idea or suggestion that President Trump did something nefarious with Epstein, you'd have to believe that the Biden people sat on that for 4 years and did nothing about it. So that's not very credible to me. But having said that, just release it in a way that's respectful to the victims.
Do you not think the Durham investigation would have uncovered anything, Russia?
I thank you, Senator Graham.
Thank you. Let's just build on what has been said. How do you say your name, sir? Alex?
Alexei Janulius. Okay. Alexei's fine.
I want to see if I got the point here. A public library is supported by public dollars. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Are you telling taxpayers of this country just shut up? Is all you worry about is your kids don't have a voice about how your taxpayer dollars are being spent and what kind of community you're living in here? Because you're a parent and you don't let your $3 read something, is it possible that the other things, that the books in question may hurt the community in the eyes of parents? Can a parent, a taxpayer, complain under this theory, or should they just shut up?
I would make the exact argument you are. This is about parents making decisions.
We're not making the same argument. My argument is you just said, if you've got kids, you police your kids. Otherwise, just shut up and trust the library system, the school system. Let them decide for your community. I completely, totally reject that. I don't have any kids, should I shut up? I pay taxes. When you have a public library and you have a board, somebody decides what books to go in or what not to go in, lend your voice to the cause. It's okay to speak out for your community. Cameron, you have an advocacy group in Texas, right?
That is correct.
And you have every right to do that. You can advocate for your point of view, and somebody in Texas has to decide who wins. But never shut up. Never be quiet. My point is, the theory of this case is parents have a very limited role in life. Apparently, taxpayers have a very limited role in this area. You're paying money to run these libraries. I mean, you're getting money from taxpayers. They should speak up. Ms. Knox, you said, is it unconstitutional for a parent to go to a school board or a public library and complain?
Thank you for giving me the chance to respond. Actually, almost all libraries have in their policies something called a request for reconsideration that allows parents or interested community members to object or say what they would like to have changed in a library collection. I think what's important to remember is that this is a collective decision. It's not just one person who gets to say what is in a library collection.
I'm not arguing with you. Somebody has to decide. But the point is the individual here, the individual taxpayer, the individual parent. There's an effort in this country to shut you up, Ms. Neely. Are you going to shut up?
We will absolutely not shut up. I am here on behalf of more than 10,000 members of Parents Defending Education who want to have a voice in their children's education. Yet they, every time they speak up, are mocked, are shamed, are intimidated and silenced and bullied by elected officials and community members who do not want them to speak up, who are told that they are book burners, who are ashamed of that. And you know what? We will not stop, because after COVID, we had a window into what our children were learning or were not learning, and we were disappointed by that. So parents have not stopped, and they will not stop advocating for their children, because the gatekeepers, be it the teachers' unions or anyone else, has shown that they do not have our children's best interest at heart. They have their money and their power structure at heart at the end of the day.
Mr. Eden, is it your testimony there's an organized effort in this country to push ideas, books, literature, through the public school system and libraries that has a very strong political agenda behind it? Is that what you're telling us?
I think it's pretty clear that that is what is going on, yes, sir.
Yeah, and if you don't see that, you're blind. You know, in Florida, Ron DeSantis did something you may not like, Mr. Chairman. In Illinois, you do it a different way. But Governor DeSantis decided he would step in and stop what he thought was abusive from his point of view. My point about this hearing is there's no roll up here for any of us. Illinois, you do it the way you want. Florida, you do it the way you want. Each school library, you'll decide. But the day that a parent, a concerned citizen, can't come forward and say, I object, without being humiliated, is a bad day for America. And there's nothing in the Constitution preventing everybody in this country from having a say to express yourself, to try to mold the community in a way that you think is better. And some of the things being pushed through this agenda are just, quite frankly, offensive.
I think you made the point earlier.
Ms. Gaines, what's the average day like for a young lady trying to compete at the level you've competed at in terms of training?
So I started swimming when I was 4. I graduated college when I was 22, so I dedicated 18 years of my life to my sport, which of course includes your sport-specific training, swimming, but also weightlifting, also your diet, also your sleep schedule, not to mention the social sacrifices you have to make. At the collegiate level, we were swimming in the water every single day for 6 hours, 3 of those hours being before 8 a.m. So you practice from 5 to 8, you go to class, you come back to practice, you swim from 1:30 to 4:30. We ate dinner at 5 o'clock because we were starving. Eat dinner, do your homework, ice your shoulder, go to bed, wake up, you do it all again the next day. We were swimming over 10 miles on average every single day.
Dr. Lopez, do you believe that Leah Thomas had an advantage in swimming because she was a biological male who transitioned sometime late in college?
I am not a sports medicine physician. I can only relate to the stand of the Sports Medicine Federal International Association.
What do they say?
They do not recommend the exclusion of transgender individuals in sports.
Do they believe it's fair for Leah Thomas, who spent 3 years swimming for the men's team in the senior year of college, to compete in the women's division? They think that's okay?
As a medical professional, I don't have the scientific expertise to provide an opinion.
Let me tell you as a person, you don't need a medical degree. This is not okay. This is definitely not okay. You work all your life training as a swimmer, competing against biological girls, and you wind up your senior in college competing with somebody who 3 years swam as a guy, and you lose. Ms. Robinson, do 80% of Americans support biological males competing in women's athletics?
I can say more than 70% of Americans believe that the rash of attacks on trans sports is the wrong political priority.
Question. Do 80% of Americans support biological males participating in female sports?
I mean, I can't verify that, but what I can say
I can tell you it's not even close. That there's nothing wrong with you if you have a problem with Miss Gaines feeling cheated. there's nothing wrong with you if you have a problem with Miss Gaines feeling uncomfortable in a locker room. There's nothing wrong with you. Now, we'll sort this out as a nation, but this idea that something's wrong with her because she feels cheated is absurd. You have every right to feel that way. And I imagine a lot of young ladies do feel uncomfortable being in a locker room under the situation you described. Mr. Sharp, what's the purpose of your organization, and what's your message to America?
Yeah. Senator, we want to protect the freedom of all Americans, and that includes our desire to ensure that children and women, that their interests are protected, that they're not harmed by this gender ideology that's being pushed, and that each of us is free to live and work and speak without being coerced or punished by the government because of our good faith beliefs.
One final question, Ms. Gaines. Do you think the experience you had in the dressing room is something that young girls throughout the country share your views?
I get messages every single day from girls of all over the political spectrum. We mentioned this issue being politicized. This is not politics for me. This is a real life issue, and I want to put it on record. I don't believe trans athletes should be banned from sports. That's the rhetoric that's being pushed from the opposition. Anti-trans bill bans trans athletes. Trans athletes should not be banned from playing sports. Of course not. I just want everyone to compete where it's fair and where it's safe, and I don't understand how that's overly controversial. But yes, especially at that NCAA championships, every single girl, at least on my team, being a team captain, I had these conversations with my team, and there was 40 girls on my team. We all felt the same way. I've had the conversations. We all felt uncomfortable in that locker room.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Are all the witnesses aware of the fact that when Justice Roberts declined the invitation of Chairman Durbin, that his letter was signed by the entire court? Are all of you aware of that? Mr. Fogel, do you think that was a wise decision?
Thank you, Senator. I think I said in my statement that I respect it. I think it was sincere. I think the problem, and I think it's significant, and I will grant that it was signed by all 9 of the justices. That's
my point.
Yeah, but
I just want people to understand that the court as a whole has a problem with this, whether they're right or wrong. I don't, that's. I guess.
I'm sorry, Senator. I just wanted to say one other thing, if it's all right.
Sure.
I think it's significant that they all signed it. I think it doesn't suggest that that's all that all of them would do. This is it's a point about which they all reached consensus.
I sort of, like you and Mr. Payne mentioned something sort of struck a nerve with me. I'm not into micromanaging the court, Judge McCasey, but when you look at what other branches do versus the court, Mr. Payne, you say it's pretty obvious they have a sort of a lower threshold, right?
That's correct.
Okay. So what I would urge the court to do is take this moment to instill more public confidence. I'm not going to vote for any of these bills, but I think we'd all be better off if they did that. And here's what I want to kind of explain to people. In 1998, Justice Ginsburg donated a signed copy of her decision in VMI case where you had to admit women to a state school. And it was auctioned off at a fundraiser supporting the National Organization of Women's Legal Defense Fund. Now, I didn't know that until this moment. Do you all agree that if Judge Alito signed the Dobbs decision and gave it to the Susan B. Anthony pro-life organization to raise money, all hell would break loose in this country? Do you agree with that, Ms. Forrest?
So would I agree that if there was a sale of a
if Judge Alito signed the Dobbs decision, autographs it, gave it to the SBA group to raise money, it'd be all hell would break loose.
Oh, yes, and I certainly would agree that would be a problem. And in fact, I think that's one of the reasons that Congress needs to play an active role today.
Why didn't all hell break loose in 1998?
I'm not sure what the reaction was.
Well, when Justice Ginsburg signed a copy of the VMI decision for the National Organization of Women's Legal Defense Fund. Well, I think we all know the answer to that. Justice Ginsburg, one of the greatest people to serve on the court, received an award from the National Democratic Women's Club. Can you imagine what would happen if Justice Roberts received the award from a Republican women's club? I think we may read more about it. Justice Ginsburg was given a $1 million award by the Berggruen Institute, and this is annual philosophy and culture award for major achievements in advancing ideas that shape the world. Now, she didn't get the money personally, but they gave her $1 million to give to other people. Does anybody have a problem with that? Does everybody have a problem with that? Well, I'm going to assume silence means yes. The point we're trying to make here, I think, is that this effort to come after Justice Thomas is, I think, organized by the left. I think this moment where we could find common ground is being hijacked. I take Senator Durbin at his word. He's been concerned about this for a very, very long time. But the point is, the game has been played differently, and now we're in a moment where this court is under siege in multiple ways. And that is the problem I think most of us have. What are the lines to be drawn, and who's the referee? Does anybody know anything about the organization Demand Justice? Negative response for all members. Do you know where their money comes from? Negative response by all members. Are you aware that they spent over $1 million in ads pressuring Justice Breyer to resign? Nobody knew that, right? So if you're worried about dark money, I think that's a legitimate thing to be worried about. Let's worry about it across the board. And I guess my point, Mr. Chairman, is that the efforts by Senator Schumer to go to the court and threaten the court with its very existence, the efforts by people to intimidate justices, decide cases before the court, can't be ignored. And here's what I worry about the most. This is not about trying to upgrade the ability of the court to be more transparent. It's about an effort to destroy the legitimacy of this conservative court. So to the panel, if you have any ideas or recommendations about how the court could be more transparent, count me in. That makes perfect sense to me. But when you look at the history of the way things have happened with the court, when a liberal justice does something, the reaction in the American media is completely different. The New York Times article about George Mason admitted a lot of other schools who did the exact same thing. And I would say to Justice Alito, don't sign a copy of the Dobbs decision and give it to the SBA to raise money. You would not receive the same treatment if you did what Justice Ginsburg did.
Thank you, Senator Graham. Senator Whitehouse.
Answer to that is yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Hirono. Senator Graham.
Thank you. Do you have the resources, the people and money you need to protect the nation? Mr. Olson.
Thank you, Senator. We do, from my vantage point in the National Security Division, we have resources to carry out our priority missions. Obviously, January 6th is a singular event that is stretching the resources of our office and the U.S. Attorney's Office in D.C., which is handling that case. There are a number of people have been detailed around the country to support that.
Do you need more money? Any changes in the law to do your job?
At this stage, I don't have any requests for more money or more authority, Senator. Thank you.
Thank you. The Vice President equated January 6th with Pearl Harbor and 9/11. Do you agree with that?
In my view, and if I may just begin by saying, with Senator Durbin and Ranking Member Grassley, it was a day that must have been horrific to be directly involved in or be victimized on Capitol Hill, and I do think it was a singular event. I'm reluctant to compare it to any prior events in our history because from my vantage point, it was unique and singular.
Yeah. So the courthouse in Portland was attacked 100 nights in a row. Would you consider those people a candidate for domestic terrorism charges?
I know that hundreds of people have been arrested, as we've discussed this morning. I don't have any information about whether or not, in any particular case, they would be, subject to.
Well, Senator Hirano said that people use violence for whatever purpose to attack a courthouse for 100 nights in a row. How many people have been charged with the Portland incident? Do you know?
I defer to Ms. Sanborn that it had data on the number of arrests. I don't have the number of charges.
Do you know, Ms. Sanborn?
No, sir, I don't have Portland specifically in front of me. I would, what I was referring to is 250 arrests over this whole summer.
Well, here's my point. January 6th was a bad day. It was a terrible day, and people are being prosecuted. And I would encourage you to have the full force and weight of law against those who defiled the Capitol. But these protests went on for a year. As you can see this photo behind me, they were literally throwing Molotov cocktails trying to kill police officers. And I didn't hear a whole lot from my colleagues on the other side for an entire year. I guess that's what gets me more than anything else. I understand the scope of January 6th, and I hope people are brought to justice. But this is, it's got to be a two-way street. Let's talk about the world in which we live in now that we have a very brief time to do so. The fall of Afghanistan, the takeover of Afghanistan by the Taliban, has that created additional national security threats to our homeland, Mr. Olson?
As I think from my vantage point, international terrorism remains a priority. And I, if I may broaden my answer a bit, just to say that we continue to be very concerned about.
Well, here's my question.
ISIS in Afghanistan, ISIS force.
Here's my question. The country is now in the hands of the Taliban. Are al-Qaeda elements present in Afghanistan?
We do see, I would say that we continue to see, we do continue to have concerns about both ISIS and al-Qaeda.
What capability do we have available to us to detect terrorism activity on the ground in Afghanistan after the collapse?
Senator, I think it might be not appropriate for me to go into particular.
Well, is it fair to say we've lost a lot of capability?
I would be reluctant to characterize the level of our capability. What I would say is that it remains a priority.
So you can't tell this committee that a lot of the assets we had available to us have been lost because of the Taliban takeover. You can't say that.
Again, I'm reluctant to characterize the level of our intelligence capabilities in Afghanistan.
Have you been to the U.S. border, southern border?
Not, well, 2-3 years ago, I did go to the southern border. Yes.
I would urge you to go back. A lot has changed in the last 2 or 3 years. How many people have come across the border, our southern border, from special interest countries?
I don't have particular information. Possibly Ms. Sanborn does, but I don't have that.
Sanborn, how many people have come across our southern border in the last year from special interest countries?
Sir, I don't have that data.
Have you been to the border?
Not in a very long time, sir.
Well, I appreciate both of your service, but it's been 3,000 to 4,000. We've had dozens of people on the terrorist watch list coming across the southern border. Here's some advice. If you need more resources, you'll get it from me. But if I were you, I'd go to the border and check out what's going on, because it's just a matter of time, in my humble opinion, that the broken southern border is going to be an entryway to international terrorists who are going to come here and kill a lot of Americans if we don't change policy. And I would urge you quickly to go to the border, get a handle on what's happening at the border, understand the relationship between the takeover of the Taliban in Afghanistan and the opportunity for more terrorist attacks coming our way through the border. So I would urge you to do that, and I'm surprised you haven't. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Graham. Senator Coons.
Thank you, Chairman Durbin, and thank you to our witnesses today. We are here to have a hearing about January 6th and about the...
Thank you. We'll eventually talk about the FBI. That's the job you're up here for, right? Have you ever been subject to racism as an individual?
Unfortunately, Senator, yes. I don't want to get into those details of my family here.
Oh, let's get into a few of them. Tell me about it.
Well, if you look at the record from January 6th, where I testified before that committee, because of my personal information being released by Congress, I was subjected to a direct and significant threat on my life. And I put that information in the record. I had to move. In that threat, I was called a detestable, and I'll apologize if I don't get it all right, but it's in the record, a detestable sand nigger who had no right being in this country. You should go back to where you came from. You belong with your terrorist home friends. That's what was sent to me. That's just a piece of it. But that's nothing compared to what the men and women in law enforcement face every day. And that's why they have my support.
Okay. Growing up, were you subject to racism?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, I think the reason you're here has a lot to do with your work on Crossfire Hurricane. Are you familiar with that FBI operation?
I am, Senator.
So Senator Durbin mentioned the church report and the history of abuse, but he failed to mention Crossfire Hurricane. He failed to mention the Horowitz report. Wonder why? If you're waiting for these guys over here to figure that out, you're going to die waiting. So this is the Nunes memo. You work for Mr. Nunes over on the House side? David Nunes?
Sorry?
Are you familiar with this memo by the Foreign Intelligence Service Act abuses
Yes.
of the Department of Justice?
Absolutely.
Did you help write this memo?
I did as a staffer.
Okay, I'm going to put this in the record.
Thank you.
In this memo, you kind of dissected the abuses of Crossfire Hurricane, right?
I did, Senator.
And the Mueller investigation. So the Crossfire Hurricane investigators, two of them were Strzok and Page. Are you familiar with them?
I am, Senator.
Okay. It was opened up on July the 31st, 2016. And here's what Strzok said. And damn, this feels momentous because this matters. The other one did too. But that was to ensure we didn't F something up. This matters because this matters. So super glad to be on this voyage with you. That's to Page. And Page responds a couple of months later, he's not ever going to be President right, talking about Trump. Strzok, no, he won't. We'll stop it. Is it fair to say that the people in charge of investigating Crossfire Hurricane hated Trump's guts?
Well, you don't have to take my word for it. That statement, along with the statements from the sources.
Are those days over in the FBI, you hope?
Well, if they're not, they will be.
Okay, good. You know who Carter Page was?
I do, Senator.
Do you know that the FBI secured warrants against him on 4 different occasions?
Yes, Senator.
Do you know that the information that they relied upon came from the Steele dossier?
I do.
Was it you that were able to find out that the Steele dossier was a bunch of crap?
Yes, Senator. We followed the money and we exposed the fraud that was the Steele dossier.
And the primary subsource was Igor Danchenko, right?
That's correct, Senator.
And he was actually a Russian analyst.
That's right.
Are you aware that in January he told the FBI that, let's see, what did he tell the FBI? Steele had no proof to support the statements, then it was just talk. The primary subsource explained to the FBI that his information came from word of mouth and hearsay, conversations he had with friends over beers, and some of the information were statements he heard made in jest. And he told the FBI this in January.
That's
of
right.
2017. And they got 2 more warrants after that.
That's correct.
Are you aware that the FBI had volumes of information that the Steele dossier was a bunch of bullshit and nobody ever told anybody at the top?
I am, sir. We exposed.
Or they lied about being told.
That's correct.
So are you aware of the fact that the FISA court rebuked the FBI? Are you aware of the fact that an FBI lawyer went to jail because he misled the court by manipulating a email from the CIA?
I am.
Do you believe that Crossfire Hurricane was one of the most disgusting episodes in FBI history of a corrupt investigation led by corrupt people who wanted to take Donald Trump down?
Yes, sir.
You think that's why you're in this chair today, to fix that?
I think that's a big
Without Crossfire Hurricane, this guy wouldn't be here. And my friends on the other side, like pulling teeth, the Horowitz investigation, the Inspector General labeled this fraudulent at its core, mismanaged at its core, running stop signs. At every turn, they went forward when they should have stopped. The Durham report said it was obviously politically motivated. FBI agents were telling anybody and everybody that would listen, this is not reliable, this is not trustworthy, but they plowed on. And because of you and Trey Gowdy and others, we now know about this. Everybody who signed the warrant under questioning by me said if they knew then what they know now, they wouldn't have signed the warrant. Comey said that. Yates said that. Rosenstein said that. The reason you're here is because most of the public, almost every Republican, believes that the FBI has been used continuously in a political fashion, ignoring evidence, making up evidence, lying to get Donald Trump. And when it came to the Hunter Biden laptop, they told every social media outlet in October 2020, oh, that's Russian disinformation. That was BS too. Right before the election, the FBI intervened to shut reporting on the Hunter laptop down as being Russian misinformation, according to Zuckerberg. Do you promise all of us those days are over at the FBI?
Yes, Senator, they are.
Are you proud of what you did to find all that?
Absolutely.
You think that's why you're here today, is to make sure that never happens again?
The American people deserve just that.
Thank you.
Senator Whitehouse.
Thanks, Chairman. Welcome, Mr. Patel.
It was her office, and it's her signature on the letter to me. It's her office that sent the 5 pages. She's the one who said, this is what we have. This is all we have. You're telling me there were 2,000 plus documents.
No, I'm
they
telling you
sent us
that
5.
the first swath of documents that we're looking to, there's many more than that.
I got you. Many, many more. Let me tell you what this so-called 5-page report, what it said in its substance, to the extent there was any. They said, number one, that nothing that was researched at the Wuhan lab could plausibly be a progenitor of SARS-CoV-2. Number two, they said there is no evidence of any research-related incident involving Wuhan employees that might have been related to the pandemic. Now, in your experience, given what you have seen, are those true statements?
Some of that would have to be covered and classified, but no, they're not true. If we wanted to get into details, I don't believe that's true.
So the United States government first deliberately violated a law passed by Congress, signed by the president, that ordered them to release all information related to the Wuhan lab, number one. Number two, they then violated the law again by withholding thousands and thousands of pages that they had at the time and knew were covered by the law. And number three, the conclusions, so-called, they released to the public are false. If that is not a cover-up, I don't know what is. And if our elected officials and unelected officials in this case, in the IC, and ODNI, if they can get by with blatantly violating the statutes of this country and lying to the American people, I'm sorry, but we don't have a democracy anymore. I don't know what it is, but it's not a democracy because we, the people, aren't in charge. These people are in charge, and they're lying to us every single day. You said in your opening statement that Dr. Fauci, speaking of someone who's not exactly a truth teller, that Dr. Fauci intervened to put his thumb on the scale of what information the intelligence community, the IC, could review when they did their initial assessments of whether or not the Wuhan lab was linked to COVID. What exactly did he do?
So let me clarify that. So he reached in and he provided this list of scientists and subject matter experts that we should talk to. And it's not like he's saying, you will go talk to them. He doesn't have the power to do that technically. It's just that the bureaucracy in place at the time was perfectly happy to pursue those recommendations, even when there was a number of individuals who expressed concern, saying, at least one for sure, that said, are you sure we want to do this? He's a policymaker, and we need to have our intelligence cycle.
And he had a point of view, did he not?
He certainly did. And
what was that point of view? Just refresh our memories.
He believes it's natural origin. He still does.
Of course. I mean, he said this over and over. Now, he would have reason to, given that he supported gain-of-function research to the Wuhan lab, lied about it to Congress, lied about it repeatedly to the chairman, as I recall. So his hands are dirty in this. And yet here he is intervening behind the scenes. It's bad enough that he's out there misleading the public. Behind the scenes, he's trying to intervene to stop our own intelligence community, who are supposed to work for the public, from actually accurately assessing the evidence. This is unbelievable. This is unbelievable. And then people wonder, gee, why are the American people not trusting of elected officials? I wonder, why are they? I'll tell you why, because we are repeatedly lied to by these people. Lied to and lied to and lied to. I want to thank you, Mr. Erdman, for your testimony. I just want to note, I think we've only scratched the surface here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for calling this hearing. And I just want to point out, when you've got a witness who's saying under oath that the report that the government issued lied to the American people, that it is false, we've got a big problem in this country. We've got a big, big problem, and we haven't begun to solve it yet. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Moody.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think this is one of the most important hearings we will hold during this administration. I think when the country went mad, and I don't care if you consider yourself a blue state or a red state, the country went mad, and people were craving leadership and leadership that truly was based on science, not someone that alleged they were following science and seemed to care more about controlling the public. I think this is one of the most important hearings, and I think everyone that actually showed up today, and you see who is here involved and taking part in this hearing, are the ones that want, on behalf of the American people, who are, by the way, are supposed to be in charge of the United States of America, want to get to the bottom of what happened, and not just because that's right, so that the people that are in charge of this nation understood what happened, but so that this never happens again. And if we are trying to prevent a government that is trying to control a populace based on nothing, based on no justification, and making sure that that never happens again, I just want it to be very clear to everyone in this room, or anyone who has taken the time to watch, that cares about their country and understands what it means to protect freedom. I just want them to see who showed up today and who is participating and who has thanked you for coming out bravely and disclosing these facts, what happened, and your opinion based on your years, decades of experience. I, for one, hailing from the great free state of Florida. Florida used to be known for flamingos. We're now known for freedom. That is because what took place over the last administration, and when churches were closed, when businesses were closed, when schools were closed, when people were shut up in their apartments, when families were prohibited from socializing and gathering, many were kept from their loved ones when they died, all under this guidance of government leading based on science. We really have to go back and question that, because that cannot happen in this country. And I think many of us that were in charge at the time question how we ever allowed that to happen. And certainly in Florida, I am so proud, along with Governor DeSantis, we led against that tide in many respects. And when people were still being told to stay at home, don't let your kids go to school, don't go to church, all of these things that seem insane right now, we didn't. We stood up for the truth. We tried our best to discern what was true, what was not, what didn't make sense. And let me tell you why things didn't make sense. And first of all, you had your Secretary of HHS, which was basically invisible, checked out. Those are words of the Biden administration at the time. Officials from the Biden administration said Secretary Becerra was invisible, checked out, an unfortunate choice for the role. And then you had Dr. Fauci, who came out and contradicted himself constantly. At one point, he even admitted later, he told people shouldn't be walking around with masks on. And later he said that was because we were trying to control the supply for healthcare professionals. It wasn't based on any science. But then later he told everyone to wear masks repeatedly. The 6-foot rule seemed to have been just crafted out of thin air with no basis in science whatsoever. In fact, he said that rule sort of just appeared when he testified, and that guidance on the shutdown of schools and small businesses was arbitrary and not based on any science. So I just want to make sure the American people hear that. You had a government who's supposed to be limited and stay out of people's lives, coming in and offering guidance. Many times it was done under mandates to close businesses, people's livelihoods, to keep children from being educated, to keep people from expressing their faith and gathering to show freedom of religion and their faith and expression. I mean, unbelievable what happened during the COVID years. I was so proud of my state, along with Governor DeSantis. We launched a grand jury investigation because the federal government sure wasn't doing it. And we got to the bottom of some of this, what was being said publicly by those that we had trusted in these positions, and how that was not actually the truth. And the science, that was where the name, the Free State of Florida, has come from. And I'm so glad now to be here as one of the newest United States senators, bringing that experience, that grand jury investigation, everything that we did differently in Florida and stood up to the madness. Because that is how the people remain in charge of their government. In the grand jury investigation that we did, we followed the evidence. We found that many of those policies, including masking, lockdown mandates, they lack sufficient scientific basis, and they in fact caused significant harm to Floridians. The same grand jury found a pattern. I'm quoting the grand jury here. This is a nonpartisan group acquired from the community to judge facts, a pattern of deceptive and obfuscatory behavior from both Big Pharma and the federal agencies charged with regulating them with respect to the COVID vaccines. So it appears from everything that we found from our own investigation, an unbiased, totally separate review of what was being said publicly by the federal government compared to what was actually based in science. It found that most of what was said and the events surrounding it was a public health establishment that was fixated on controlling the public and forcing narratives rather than protecting public health or discovering the truth. And so I am grateful that you are willing to be here today. I know that this is under subpoena, but certainly it takes courage and to be here and to be a whistleblower that can get accountability for the American people. You know, Florida was years ahead of the federal government's supposed experts. We're proud of that, but this is so important. And so I want to know, and I have one question. We're getting to the what. What happened? We were glad that Florida led on that. Even while people remained locked down, we were trying to get to the answers. What happened? But in all of your reviews and what you've been able to compile and what you're saying today, what is the why? Why?
Why did the cover-up happen? I think there's a lot of incentives, misaligned incentives that have been created because of this highly opaque and complex system of laboratories, life science research. And the IC is just one component of that. Why did it happen inside the CIA and inside DNI and inside the interagency space when they were doing the analysis over the course of 4 years? Part of it is iron rice bowls. You know, your normal bureaucratic issues where one agency has this, another agency has that. There there was groupthink. You could see it happening in real time as you read from beginning to end. I'll give you a couple examples. Every time there was an open source publication that came out, they're very good at grabbing that and kicking it up for the contracted scientists, the BSEG, to take a look at and assess. And the goal, it seemed, it always leaned one direction. They never took the publications from Sorensen and Dalglish, who came out very early. I think it was July 2020 that one of the best papers written was open source by Sorensen and Dalglish. They never took those papers and said, wow, we've got a lot here, we need to make sure we get this added in. Or Dr. Stephen Quay, for example, who had a lot to say about COVID origins. It was always one direction, and because the interagency space seemed intent on pushing it that way, and why the interagency space? I think the interagency space, I'm talking about the National Intelligence Council and the people responsible for that. I mean, these are people who have relationships with the National Academy of Scientists and the National Academy of Sciences. They've got relationships with the WMD community, and they're all part of the same, ecosystem. The planets are all revolving around the same star. And so you get groupthink. There's a multitude of reasons. I didn't find any smoking gun where they said, well, we got to cover this up because for sure the U.S. government paid for research in Wuhan, China. But they were certainly well aware of PREDICT. They were well aware of the diffuse proposal that had circulated. And they had those products available to them. I think you get enough people shouting something down, it gets shouted down. And that happened repeatedly. I do want to just, if I can take just a moment, particularly about the scientists that are brought forward. I really, really want to emphasize a couple things. And one of it is we can't vilify these scientists. I'm going to give a very short anecdote, and I hope I'm not going over on time or anything like that. But when I got hired to the CIA, I can't tell you how proud I was. I really couldn't believe that they hired me. I'm sure there's some friends who are like, yeah, I can't believe it either. But they hired me because they saw potential to be able to be somebody who could recruit spies and steal secrets. That's my job. Imagine you're a scientist. Imagine the U.S. government comes to you and says, listen, sir, you are a specialist in a field no one else knows about. And in fact, the whole point of a PhD is to push beyond what's known further than anybody else in a very rarefied field. Imagine you're a scientist and the CIA comes up to you and says, or the NIC, the intelligence community, comes up to you and says, you're special, not because we see potential, but because we know you're special and we need your help. We can't vilify these people who wanted to help. We can, however, boy, I might be contradicting myself here, but the system definitely needs a look because the system has been put in place now and you've got these same people that we've said, you're important to the IC. We just haven't done the proper work to ensure that those people who are important to the IC aren't cross-pollinated all over in other places so that they can incentivize the kind of research that we need done or the white papers we need written. We have to have a holistic overview. And I think it's really hard to have like one agency do their review, another agency do their review, the legislative branch do their review. In this case, it is a team sport.
So one answer also, Senator Moody, to your question about the why. People think, well, gosh, was there a conspiracy where all these evil people had their hands together and they were conspiring to do something bad? And I think George Carlin put it the best. He said it isn't required that you come up with a conspiracy where interests converge. And I think the interest is we funded a lot of dangerous research. Accidents have happened. This was an accident. In all likelihood, this was an accident. Even the Chinese probably didn't want this to happen in Wuhan. It was an accident. But the interest is that if you funded that research for 10 years, wouldn't I logically want to ask you why? Why you did this funding. And so There are dozens of people throughout government who did cover this up, maybe hundreds, but they don't even know each other necessarily, but they had a hand in funding this research through the years. They've been in favor of it. It's been a big debate. For 20 some odd years, there's been a huge debate, maybe longer. People think this is the first virus that got out. One of the most, it's not as much reported, but one of the most famous viruses that got out was the Russian flu of 1977. And we're not sure it came from Russia or where it came from, but the interesting thing is nobody over 24 got the flu. Zero, not one person. Why? Because the Russian flu of 1977 had the exact same RNA structure as a flu in 1953 that had been kept in a lab somewhere. How do you get an identical virus 30 years later? Viruses mutate every couple of months like COVID has. There is no way to have an identical virus unless you got it from a lab. So proof positive that the 1977 flu actually came out of a lab. An accident, once again, an accident. There's a woman who's written about this. I think her last name is Young. She says that over a period of years, like 1,500 major accidents that she's cataloged. So it's not only about malfeasance, it's about safety of these labs. In fact, some people were finally convinced that this came from Wuhan because it was a BSL-2 instead of a BSL-4 for much of the time, that it didn't have enough safety precautions. But even the safest one, the 4, still has accidents. So maybe some of these experiments, we ought to reconsider whether we do them.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And it just goes to show why it's helpful to have a doctor as our chairman. You could also be a witness.
Thank you. We're going to conclude pretty quickly. I'm going to give Senator Johnson another chance if you have another question.
I've got a quick question, then I want to go someplace else. In September 2023, we apparently had a CIA whistleblower come forward, and there are news articles written about this, that 6 of the 7 analysts to describe this were bribed to change their analysis. Is that true?
No. So there's some clarifications on that. What is true, and I thank you for bringing up this question, Senator Johnson, because this is one of the things I wanted to make sure the record was corrected. So, and if I have just a few minutes here to sort of talk through this, there was new information that came out in 2022, and it forced the community to try and conduct a relook. There were 10 CIA scientists, I'm talking from the CIA side now, not on the NICS side, 10 CIA scientists that were said, why don't you go ahead and do a COVID relook? On that team, there were 7 SMEs, subject matter experts, technical experts with, lab experience, medical experience. And so they began their relook. And by the time they wrote their paper, they wrote a paper and they said, we're assessing this as a lab leak. 8 of the 10, according to multiple whistleblowers, 8 of the 10 were definitely leaning in on lab leak. They sent that paper, that draft paper, up to the Weapons and Counterproliferation Center front office and said, take a look. And magically, a new report shows up that allegedly contradicted the information that had come in earlier that year. The multiple people we spoke to said, yeah, it didn't really contradict it. But they were told, go back to the drawing board and do a reassessment. So the interagency got involved. They were having discussions. So they go back to the drawing board. And by the time 2023 rolls around, they've got their answer. They say, 6 of the 7 technical people on that team. So there's 10 people on the team. 6 of the 7 technical experts say, yep, we still think it's a lab leak. We still think it's a lab leak. And they were sticking to their guns. Management changed the analytic line. They changed the conclusion to a non-consensus call. Actually, worse than that, they said that the exact words were, I don't want to get this wrong. Excuse me. We may never precisely know the origin of SARS-CoV-2. Precisely. Precisely is not a term analysts use. They use like low confidence, medium confidence, yes, no. Precisely is a word you use when you want to deliberately end discussion. Because Do you know how many resources we need to precisely know the origin of SARS-CoV-2?
So again, I want the chairman to indulge me a little bit more here. There's no bribes paid. This is just a management decision. They overrode what the, okay.
But the financial piece definitely needs to be looked into because they did receive an EPA. They got it. It's $1,500.
Okay, so it may be true then.
No. Let me be very clear. There were no bribes. They received an exceptional performance award. They were upset with it, and it was not a bribe. But what I will say, the people who
they were rewarded for
their work. They didn't know they were going to get it.
Okay,
they were not.
I got you. Okay, I got you. And I understand this distinction. 1 point and 1 question. Just received this from Liz Lyon, the CIA Director of Public Affairs. The committee acted in bad faith by subpoenaing an agency officer for testimony today without notifying CIA. Despite having already obtained closed-door testimony from the individual previously, the witness testifying today is not appearing as a whistleblower in pursuit of the truth, but instead in response to the subpoena issued by Chairman Paul. This proceeding amounts to nothing more than a dishonest political theater masquerading as a congressional hearing, as the CIA has already assessed COVID-19 most likely originated from the lab leak, and efforts to undermine that conclusion are disingenuous. I'm calling on CIA Director Radcliffe and this person to apologize to Chairman Paul and this committee. This is not political theater. I have years and years and years of built-up frustration of agencies like the CIA, Department of Justice, the FBI, HHS, snubbing our oversight, giving us the big middle finger. And that really leads me into my question. You talked about how proud you were. Okay, I can imagine that. My belief is I'd say most people serving in government, all these agencies, are doing good work. They're patriots. Why aren't there more people like you? I mean, you saw Josh Hawley's, Senator Hawley's, the 5-page snub, the 5-page middle finger saying, any and all, this is it. And people inside the agencies know that's not the truth. They know that is a big, fat lie. What happens inside the agency that people, good Americans, patriotic Americans, people who believe in democracy, witness that and realize the agency they're working for is lying bold-faced to legitimate congressional oversight, legitimate congressional investigations to the American people? What is causing this?
2 answers. 1, we need more leaders like Director Gabbard, who pulls together a task force of people to actually pursue this, despite the difficulty in wrangling agencies to do the right thing. I think the second thing I'll say is it's a minority of officers. I mean, most of the people joining the CIA are barrel-chested freedom fighters. Like, they're out there wanting to do the right thing. As you matriculate upwards into the bureaucracy, I just think that it gets easier and easier to find people who are more willing to get along. And you know, if we want to link this back to COVID, you had a bunch of refuseniks out there that said no, and they were trying to push these people out. And what you really need in these organizations are, you can't have the whole organization saying no to everything because nothing gets done. But you got to retain the people who are sometimes a little more difficult to deal with, more willing to say no over and over. And I think we've created a milquetoast bureaucracy. When I first joined the agency, the chiefs of offices had a lot of power, and then modernization happened, and they watered everything down, and the accountability piece has to be there. Otherwise, this is just going to keep happening.
Well, again, I appreciate you coming forward. Again, I'm calling on Director Radcliffe and that communications person. This committee, this chairman needs an apology. This is not political theater. This is serious oversight work. This is what the American people need to see. And I just wish our Democrat colleagues had any level of curiosity what's happening inside the deep state. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, and I completely concur. And I would also like to respond to the CIA spokesman. They say that we have already obtained closed-door testimony. Well, closed-door testimony doesn't provide oversight. Public testimony provides oversight. We have asked them for public testimony and for oversight. We would love to have the scientists the 6 or 7 scientists that were commissioned to look at this, we'd love to see their report. Why would we not be allowed to see their report? I can't even read that in private. But that should be public, the science. If there are sources and methods, mark them out, redact them. But we should be able to see that. But for them to have the gall to say, oh, we allowed the witness to testify in private and that should be enough. No, you were told by Congress unanimously to declassify this material and you send us 5 pages. Imagine how many, you mentioned maybe 2,000 pages. DOE has a report. That's got to be 40 or 50 pages, but the base documents for DOE's report are probably run into the hundreds of pages just for that one report. And they did a great analysis of this, but still most of that is not available to the public. Why does it need to be available? Because this is going to happen again, and we need to be prepared, and we need to talk about it. One of the other things we didn't get to in this hearing, but we need to talk to, how do you prepare for the next pandemic? Well, one of the things that actually worked was monoclonal antibodies. We need to be talking about how we can quickly produce them again, how we can quickly get started on things like that. What worked and what didn't work? Masks didn't work. 6 feet of distancing, there was no science. They say follow the science, and yet it looks like everything that happened at the CIA was the politicians overruling the scientists. The scientists were concluding this came from the lab, from a lab leak, in all probability. The politicians were overturning them once at 2 in the morning. So that is one of the takeaways from this, is that, yes, follow the science and the scientists, and that the scientists need to not have a conflict of interest. Which leads me to the final point I'll make before we conclude. I applaud the Trump administration for an executive order saying no more gain of function. It is head and shoulders above anything. The Biden administration really didn't do much of anything on this. The Trump administration is trying to live by that. The reason it won't work forever is that people who have a Weasley way with words, let's say Anthony Fauci, will come back into play, and half of his lieutenants probably still work over there. One of them will get in power again, and all they will simply say is, oh, creating that new virus that grows 10 times faster and grows better in human cells, oh, that's not gain of function. Because that's what Anthony Fauci was doing. He was still doing the gain of function research. He was just saying, oh, the way I look at the definition, that's not really. So we do need a commission. And what I proposed is the Risky Research Review Act. It'll be a presidential commission. It'll have scientists on it. They will be experts, but they will not be currently in the employ of government competing for grants. I think that is a conflict of interest. They have to be people outside of it. There also will be some people who are national security experts as well. And we have to look at the list of things. One scientist, Dr. Esfelt, ordered off the internet under Biden's policy. He ordered snippets of DNA from here and here, chopped them up, put them together, and he made the Spanish flu. Now, he told the FBI he was doing it because he wanted to prove a point. He didn't create the infectious portion of the Spanish flu, but he said, look, I can do it by just ordering DNA. So there are a lot of things that have to be addressed, and unfortunately, it's somehow a partisan issue, and we're not getting anywhere. But I want to applaud you for your courage in coming forward. You did come forward at the response of a subpoena. That is a lawful subpoena, and I see no reason that anyone should try to punish you. If anybody does try to punish you, I can promise you that we will defend you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator.
Meeting's adjourned. Thank you. Yep. I would like to thank our witness for joining us here today to share his testimony and expertise with the committee. The record for this hearing will remain open until 5 p.m. on Wednesday, May 13th, 2026 for the submission of statements and questions. For the record, the hearing is now adjourned. Thank you.
Golden Dome that the likes of which nobody's ever seen before. The finest, the best. And by the way, Canada called. They want to be a part of it, and that'll be great. But Canada wants very much to be included in that, and we're going to work something out with them, I hope. It will also ensure that our technological capabilities, of which we're way ahead of anybody else, there's nobody close, remain unmatched long into the future. So I'd like to ask Secretary Hegseth to say a few words. He was very much a part of it. And really, everybody behind me was. Every one of these people would call me and lobby me. I said, Katie, I don't want to talk to you anymore. I know what you want. She said, "That's right, sir. That's what I want." And they got their way. So I just want to congratulate. These are really special people. They're politicians in many ways, but they're great patriots, I think even more so than politicians. So they fought very hard to get it, and it's an honor to give it to Huntsville. Pete, say a few words, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. As usual, right place, right time, for the right reason. In your first administration, you established the Space Force at a time when we knew we had to be looking to that domain of space. You also reestablished SpaceCom to ensure that priority was put in place, and you, through the Air Force, independently identified that Huntsville, Alabama was the right place to put it. For other reasons, in the next administration under Biden, they decided to move it somewhere else. Well, during that time, the DoD Inspector General, the Government Affairs Office, they did their own assessments, and where did they say SpaceCom should go? Huntsville, Alabama. So what you're doing today, Mr. President, is restoring it to precisely where it should be based on what the Space Force, the Air Force, your leadership believes will give us strategic advantage in the future. That is Huntsville, Alabama. We are way ahead in space, but this will ensure we stay leaps and bounds ahead because that's the most important domain. Whoever controls the skies will control the future of warfare. And Mr. President, today you're ensuring that happens. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Katie, would you like to say something?
Mr. President, we are grateful for your leadership on this and restoring Space Command to its rightful home in Huntsville, Alabama. This delegation has worked together, both chambers, both parties, to make sure that Huntsville was the place that Space Command called home. As was mentioned, obviously the Biden administration chose to make this political. What we want to do is put the safety and security of Americans first. We want to make sure that our warfighter is put first, and we want to make sure that America continues to lead. And today, Mr. President, you've allowed that to happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Tommy, please.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. This is a great day for our country, not just for our state of Alabama. We need help in our military. We need to catch up. And as Secretary has said, we're not behind in space, but we know where we're at, and we need to expound on that. Now, this move will save the taxpayers $480 million. It's not going to cost more. It's going to cut $480 million. We have the plans intact. It'll be behind a secure wall in Huntsville, Alabama, at Redstone Arsenal. We have 40,000 people there. We have the FBI there. We have missile defense there. We have NASA, Blue Origin, and SpaceX. It is the perfect place for Space Command. I would tell you today, and I've spoke with the President for the last 3 or 4 years about this. If I thought it needed to go somewhere else because I understand the security of our country, I'd be for that. But the best place for Space Command is Huntsville, Alabama, because what we have and what it means to this country is going to be so important. So thank you, Mr. President, for this, and we look forward to building a huge Space Command and having the Donald J. Trump Space Command Center in Huntsville, Alabama.
Sure. Well, Mr. President, thank you. I'll be very brief here. I lobbied the president hard to put it in Ohio, but he said these people behind us, these Alabamas, are just too powerful and too persuasive. And so it's in Alabama, but as Tommy said, this is exactly the right place for Space Force and Space Command. I think Americans ought to appreciate the fact that you can't win the battle of the future unless you control the skies. The cyber security, the communications, the entire infrastructure of the battle in the 21st century will be in space. So it was a visionary move in the first administration for the president to set up Space Force, and I think an equally visionary move to make sure that Space Force is right where it should be in Huntsville, Alabama. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Gentlemen, anybody want to say anything? Would you like to say?
Mr. President, another promise made, another promise kept. You think about it, Redstone Arsenal is critical to national security. The president said when you were the 45th president, let's do what's right for national security. And today, that's exactly what we're doing. It's not because of this or that. It's because it's right for national security. You think of the 21 categories that were evaluated to determine what was best for national security. All indicators pointed back to Huntsville, Alabama, and Redstone Arsenal. We have the right people at the right place at the right time. Mr. President, on behalf of the people of the 5th Congressional District and all of Alabama, thank you for keeping your word. Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Anybody?
Let me just say, Mr. President, I want to say thank you. And thank you for doing this because it was the right thing to do. When they looked at all the numbers, Huntsville was the place to go. And like you say, it was unfortunately pulled out, but you made it right. So I want to just say thank you again for a grateful nation, and to the state of Alabama, we're very grateful. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Please, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. Throughout history, militaries has always understood that whoever could hold the high ground held the advantage. Space is the ultimate high ground. And what we're doing with moving the Space Command to Huntsville is absolutely critical to our maintaining dominance in that sphere. And it goes hand in hand with what we're trying to do with the Golden Dome and missile defense to defend against anyone else who tries to enter that sphere. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Please, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. And obviously, national defense is a huge issue. And when you look at the scores, Alabama was #1. And for political reasons, it was moved out of our state. But, Mr. President, thank you for making priorities the defense and the warfighter and the safety of this nation. And in the big, beautiful bill, that Golden Dome will be built in Huntsville, Alabama, and we're grateful for that. Thank you.
Listen, as chairman of the Armed Services Committee, I care very much about what's most important for our national security. And the president held a nationwide competition to determine where we should have this command. If y'all remember, at the end of that competition, where Alabama came in first, there was a lot of complaints from the other states who did not place well. He said, we'll do it over with new criteria to accommodate your concerns. Alabama came in first in that second competition. His Secretary of the Air Force reviewed the results, said it was fair, and the president named Huntsville. It was the Biden administration that decided to make it political, even though his own Secretary of the Air Force said it was a fair competition and it should be in Huntsville. So I want you to know I appreciate this president standing up and being strong and saying he's going to make this right and put it where it rightfully belongs, and that's Huntsville, Alabama.
Thank you very much. Good job. So thank you all very much. You are going to leave me alone now. You're not going to call me anymore and talk about this subject, right? You promise? They'll start something else. But I just want to congratulate you. It's a very big deal. When you come out and when you leave the room, you'll see that we just, over the last few minutes, literally shot out a boat, a drug-carrying boat, a lot of drugs in that boat. And you'll be seeing that and you'll be reading about that. It just happened moments ago. And our great general, head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, who's been so incredible, including what took place in Iran, knocking out potential nuclear power for a long time to come. I think within a month they would have had it if we didn't do what we did. But he gave us a little bit of a briefing, and you'll see. And there's more where that came from. We have a lot of drugs pouring into our country, coming in for a long time. And we just, these came out of Venezuela and coming out very heavily from Venezuela. A lot of things are coming out of Venezuela. So we took it out, and you'll get to see that after this meeting is over. Do you have any questions, please? Yeah, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Tuberville, you talked about the cost savings associated with this announcement. Can you talk about the strategic benefits by having Space Force Command headquartered in Huntsville?
Well, it just works because we have so much else there. And having a central, you could call it a central command, but it really is a command station. Also, even locationally, where it is, and when you think about flying distances, if you can save a half an hour as fast as some of these planes go and things go, and even the rockets go, if you can save by having the best location. So we went out, as you know, to experts, and we had 4 different groups of experts. They all said this was the best location. I also loved it from the standpoint, I know the people of Alabama, they are great people, work hard, and there's no games, and they're very proud of it. And I would say they fought harder for it than anybody else also. A lot of states, 5 states really wanted it, but they wanted it more. And I kid you not when I say that these people, they spoke to me a lot. That's all they wanted to talk about. They didn't want to talk about the weather. They only wanted to talk about moving to this location, moving to Alabama, Huntsville in particular. So we're honored to do it. They really wanted it badly, and they got it. Peter?
President,
President Trump, something completely different, but about a big viral social media trend over the weekend. How did you find out over the weekend that you were dead? You see that?
No.
People didn't see it for a couple days. 1.3 million user engagements as of Saturday morning about your demise.
Really? I didn't see that. You know, I have heard, it's sort of crazy, but last week I did numerous news conferences, all successful. They went very well, like this is going very well. And then I didn't do any for 2 days, and they said, there must be something wrong with him. Biden wouldn't do them for months. You wouldn't see him. And nobody ever said there was ever anything wrong with him, and we know he wasn't in the greatest of shape. No, I heard that. I get reports. Now, you knew I did an interview that lasted for about an hour and a half with somebody, and everybody saw that was on one of your competitors. I did numerous shows and also did a number of truths, long truths, I think pretty poignant truths. No, I was very active over the weekend. They also knew I went out to visit some people at the club that I own, pretty nearby on the Potomac River. And no, I've been very active actually over the weekend. I didn't hear that one. That's pretty serious stuff.
I'm glad it's
Well, it's fake news. You know, it's just it's so fake. That's why the media has so little credibility. I knew they were saying, like, is he okay? How's he feeling? What's wrong? I said, I just left. And it's also sort of a longer weekend, you know, it's Labor Day weekend. So I would say a lot of people, no, I was very active this Labor Day. I had heard that, but I didn't hear it to that extent. Go ahead, Peter.
Something else. We know that this country has a huge problem with school shootings. You've said that you were open to sending the National Guard pretty much anywhere. Would you ever consider sending an armed National Guardsman to every school?
Well, we have a big problem with school shooting, but we also have thousands and thousands of schools that run perfectly. You know, they talk about you can do things construction-wise, and that's really, I think nobody knows more about construction than me. You can build the construction doors. You can build what they call safety doors, where they lock on the outside, the inside, and every place else. Well, but if one of these lunatics happens to get through, then the police can't get in. Then they're looking for keys all over the place, and it takes a lot of disadvantages to doing, spending billions and billions of dollars and actually making it safer in some way for some of these lunatics that we're dealing with. But I don't think so. I've thrown out the concept. We have great teachers that love our children. The parents love the children. Teachers love the children too. And if you took a small percentage of those teachers that were in the military, that were distinguished in the military, that were in the National Guard, et cetera, and you let them carry, that's something that a lot of people like. I sort of liked it. It'd have to be studied, but they're trained. They know about weapons. You can't do it with every teacher because most teachers don't know, and but I always thought that would be an alternative. But it just we've had a lot of instances. Other countries have also. They have different kinds of problems than we have, but we do have. There's something going on. And it's a bad thing. Yes, please.
Have you spoken with President Putin in the past week? Have you spoken with President Putin?
Yeah, I don't want to. I have learned things that will be very interesting. I think in the next few days you'll find out.
Will there be any consequences if there isn't some type of announcement of a meeting with President Putin and President Zelensky?
Yeah, there will be. We're going to see what happens. We're going to see what they do and what happens. I'm watching it very closely. Last week, they lost 7,000, between the two countries, 7,313 soldiers, to be somewhat exact, for no reason whatsoever. And they're Russian and they're Ukrainian, but, they're soldiers. I want to see it end. Yeah.
Mr. President, have you decided you're definitely going to send National Guard troops to Chicago?
I didn't say when, but the answer is, look, Chicago's very interesting because I watched Pritzker get up and say we don't need help, we're safe. But 2 weeks ago, they had 6 people murdered, and they had 24 people hit by bullets. Last week, as you know, it was 7 people, 24 people hit, and 7 people died. And then over the last 2 days, that was the crown jewel. They had, I guess, 9 or 10 killed, and 50 hit with bullets. And you have this governor get up, who's a terrible governor, probably he and Gavin Newsom would be probably the two worst and most naive. They're naive. Either they're naive or they're very untruthful. And he'll say, we don't want any protection. We don't need. So in the last 3 weeks, he's lost almost 20 people killed. There's no place in the world, including you can go to Afghanistan, you can go to places that you would think of. They don't even come close to this. Chicago is a hellhole right now. Baltimore is a hellhole right now. Parts of Los Angeles are terrible. If we didn't put out the fires, and I mean the other fires, the bullet fires, they didn't do a good job with, they should have had the water coming down, like I said. You know, we had to release the water. We had to go in and release the water to LA. It's so badly run. But if I didn't send the National Guard into Los Angeles, I would be making an announcement today. I'd be talking about Huntsville, and I'd simultaneously be saying, by the way, the Olympics is not coming to Los Angeles. If we didn't do that, and even the sheriff, the top law enforcement person in Los Angeles said, we could not have handled it without them. So that's what he said.
Make your mind up on Chicago, though?
Well, we're going in. I didn't say when. We're going in. When you lose, look, I have an obligation. This isn't a political thing. I have an obligation. When we lose, when 20 people are killed over the last 2.5 weeks, and 75 are shot with bullets. So let me tell you a little story about a place called D.C., District of Columbia, right here where we are. It's now a safe zone. We have no crime. It's in such great shape. You can go and actually walk with your children, your wife, your husband. You can walk right down the middle of the street. You're not going to be shot, Peter. You're safe. Everyone likes you anyway. They probably wouldn't do it. But it's so dangerous. And there are people in this audience you've suffered greatly. There are people in this audience that have been mugged and hurt badly, and they don't want to talk about it. Maybe you were very brave in talking about it. You made quite an impression on a lot of people. I appreciate it. But there were other people in this room that have been hurt very badly just walking down the street in D.C. Washington, D.C. is a safe zone right now. It's a safe city. The restaurants are open. They're booming. You can't get a restaurant. New restaurants are announcing that they're going to be open. This took place in 12 days. Now it's 15 days, but 3 days ago it became what's known as a safe zone. It's a safe city. And this city was really bad, really, really bad. We took 1,600 people out, hardcore criminals that will not be coming back anytime soon. And we're very proud of it. You know, to have our nation's capital lose every week. You know, it was like years, many years, where every single week somebody was killed for many, many, many consecutive weeks. This went on for years. And then we had, last week it was announced that nobody was killed last week. And I made that announcement in front of a very distinguished leader of a country. And I'm saying proudly, ladies and gentlemen, nobody was killed in Washington, D.C. this week. He looked at me like, what's that all about? I say, yeah, we have a little bit of a crime problem. And we don't have a crime problem in Washington anymore. And the mayor has been very helpful, and the police commission has been very helpful, and it's been a great team. And I would love to have Governor Pritzker call me. I'd gain respect for him and say, we do have a problem, and we'd love you to send in the troops, because you know what? The people, they have to be protected. I saw today on one of your networks, not a friendly network, really the opposite, I would say, very unfriendly network. And they interviewed about 12 people on this morning. Most of them were African American, they were black. And they were saying, please, please, please let the president send in. These were people from Chicago. Please, we need help. We need help. We can't walk outside. We're petrified. If the governor of Illinois would call me up, I would love to do it. Now, we're going to do it anyway. We have the right to do it because I have an obligation to protect this country. And that includes Baltimore. I saw where Governor Moore was asking me to take a walk down the street of Baltimore. Well, Baltimore is a very unsafe place. It's rated number 4 in the city, one of the most unsafe places anywhere in the world. But, you know, we took care. This was a beautiful thing that happened in Washington because we showed that it could be done. And this wasn't just sending big, strong guys, and they are big and they are strong. You know, we had a great decision from the Supreme Court that had to do with sort of talent. It had to do with you are put down based on merit. You can hire based on merit. So merit for a soldier or for a policeman is strong, physically fit, something, you know, having a certain ability, not a person that is woke and got the job through woke, but wasn't strong enough to lift a gun out of the holster, et cetera, et cetera. No, I looked at the police. As you know, last week I went over, we had a meeting with, there had to be 300 people, and they were all very impressive looking. And when the bad guys see them, they're not going to do a thing. And so I'm very proud of Washington. It serves as a template, and we're going to do it elsewhere. But Chicago is certainly going to be high. I would love to have him call. I would love the governor of Illinois. I'd be honored to take his call. All he has to do is say, sir, we need help. It's out of control. And everyone knows it is. He's not kidding anyone. I would love to have, I would say, Governor Moore call, because I watched him over the weekend trying to explain that Baltimore, what they need is housing. No, they don't need housing. They need to get rid of the criminals. These are hardcore criminals. You know, we took many people off the streets of Washington, D.C. They're hardcore. They're not going to be good. In 10 years, in 20 years, in 2 years, they're going to be criminals. They were born to be criminals, frankly. They were born to be criminals, and they're tough and mean, and they'll cut your throat, and they won't even think about it the next day. They won't even remember that they did it. And we're not going to have those people. Washington, D.C. is now a safe zone. It's a safe place. And you can walk, Katie, you can walk right down the street with, by the way, one of the biggest human beings I've ever seen, which is her husband. He was a football player for like 11 years in the NFL. He's a big person. But big doesn't mean anything when they have guns and when they have knives and everything else that they have, right? But you can walk right down the street, even by yourself, and you're totally safe. Washington, D.C. is a great thing. Yes, ma'am, please.
Mr. President, as you're calling on Democratic leaders across the country to work with you on crime, do you see your efforts here in D.C., including, for example, working with Mayor Bowser here as a model for bringing more bipartisanship in matters not only with crime, but also issues that matter to everyday American people's lives?
So Mayor Bowser's been great. She could have taken the thing, oh, well, and then after I clean it up, they'll take credit for it. You know what they do is they take credit. Like, we cleaned up Los Angeles. We did a great job there. And it was overwhelming what was going on. And again, the police chief made a statement that we could not have done, there's no way they could handle it. You saw what was happening out there. It was going to be a disaster. We stopped it cold. If we didn't do that, would have been a very sad day. And you know, remember, we have the Olympics, we have the World Cup, we have all these things coming, and we have 250, all of these things coming. But I watched Newsom get up and say he's doing a great, he's not, we're the ones that did it, and that's okay, whatever it takes, but the main thing is but he got up and said, we did it. Well, he didn't want us there, and he's going to need us again because it's starting to form again. I see it. It's starting to form again. You know, we have to maintain. It's like maintenance on an airplane. You can buy it, but you have to maintain it. And if you don't maintain it, a good plane becomes very unsafe very quickly. So it's an honor to do it. It's a lot of presidents wouldn't do what I'm doing. I don't need this heat. But when I watched television last night and I'm watching the news and I see that 9 people were killed in Chicago and 54 were badly wounded with bullets, I say, that's not this country. We have to do something. And I do say this, I say this very much. I'm not speaking to anybody but them right now. I would love to receive calls from governors and mayors saying they need help. We'll help them. We have a lot of people. We have a great force. We have a great military force. You know, Pete will tell you that when I was running for office, and this was a big headline, I think, you know, probably got me a couple of votes, but you couldn't sign people in the military. Nobody wanted to join the military, the Army, Air Force, the Navy, Marine, Space Force, Coast Guard. We never forget Coast Guard because they've done such a great job. Never. But nobody wanted to join any of them. We were way below what we wanted. Every single one. The closest was the Marines. whatever that is. You'll explain that to me. But the closest was the Marines. But every service was way down, way down. And then I got elected, and our country's the hottest country anywhere in the world right now. Everybody's talking about the USA. They're talking about the job that we're doing. Everybody. We have the best economy. We have a very, very important decision being made by the Supreme Court because our country is the richest, the strongest, the most powerful. But if for some reason some liberal court, I'm talking about the court that just ruled, where even an Obama judge voted in favor of us, which I gave him a compliment yesterday, as you know. I said that took great courage. But it's a liberal court, and it's going up to the Supreme Court, who I think have been incredible people. I think they've made very wise decisions. But the tariff question, because without the tariffs, this country is in serious, serious trouble. We've taken in almost $17 trillion of investment is coming in. Most of it is coming because of tariffs. And if for some reason somebody wanted to be politically correct, I actually think it's unpolitically correct. I think politically correct is to approve it because there's nothing so popular as what's happened to our country. Our country is doing so well. But we had a liberal court gave us a very shocking ruling, and that ruling is basically saying that the trillions of dollars that are pouring into our country, putting us in a position like no country is anywhere in the world, that they'd like to see us that taken away. By the way, a lot of the people behind that lawsuit, and those countries are paying us $950 billion, and they're happy about it. They're okay. As one of them said, it's amazing that we got away with it so long. One of my friends, a leader of one of the countries, and they're fine with it. They all signed. If that ruling ever went against us, I guess we'd have to give back hundreds of billions. We would have to give trillions and trillions of dollars back to countries that have been ripping us off for the last 35 years. And I can't imagine it happening. On a legal basis, they have no legal basis whatsoever. But on a common sense basis, it would destroy America. Okay.
You talked about controlling the sky. On Sunday, the satellite signal of Ursula von der Leyen's plane was alleged.
With Ursula?